I find myself in the quiet corners of the night, tracing the thought of him like a delicate brush across the canvas of my mind, unable to distinguish where my breath ends and his presence begins, and I am haunted in the most exquisite way, for even in the spaces between heartbeats, I feel the echo of him lingering, soft and relentless, as though the stars themselves had conspired to write his name across the sky for me alone to see. And yet I fear the world would never understand the depth of this devotion that tethers my soul to his in ways both terrifying and sublime. Every glance I steal toward him is a silent rebellion against my own decorum, for my position, my title, my very existence should demand restraint. Yet the pull of his gaze across a crowded room is like gravity itself bending toward him, and I am powerless, as if some ancient law has ordained that my heart cannot lie dormant while he moves through the air I breathe. And I ache with both anticipation and dread, a delicious torment that binds me and yet elevates me to heights I had never known, heights I might never survive to describe. The memory of his voice clings to me in daylight hours, slipping into my thoughts with the subtlety of perfume, leaving traces that are both intoxicating and unbearable. For I know that to hear it again will bring both pleasure and peril, a double-edged sweetness that pierces my chest and makes me wonder if such longing can truly be borne without shattering. And yet I am compelled to savor it, to let it consume me entirely, because to deny it is to deny the very breath that sustains me. I wander through gardens I have known since childhood, yet the flowers themselves seem to bloom differently now, as if responding to the invisible thread that ties my heart to his, and I imagine him walking among the shadows, the sun catching the planes of his face, the world narrowing until it is only the two of us, and the thought makes me tremble with an urgency that borders on fear, because I am not merely in love, I am undone, unraveling at the edges, every fiber of my being rewritten in his image. When he smiles, I feel as though the universe itself bends toward that moment, that fleeting curvature of lips that carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken promises. And I am caught between worship and longing, unable to resist the pull of it, knowing that each smile is a trap I willingly fall into, for it ignites a fire that no distance or decorum can extinguish, and I am left in the aftermath, trembling, dazed, a willing captive to the storm he conjures with a single, careless motion. There are nights when I imagine our hands brushing by accident, and the touch is electric in its impossibility, a quiet rebellion against all rules and expectations, and I am consumed by the sensation before it even occurs, a premonition of a closeness that terrifies me, because it threatens to dissolve all restraint. Yet I cannot resist it, cannot resist imagining the way his fingers might intertwine with mine, the way his warmth might seep into me and stay there, permanently altering the geometry of my soul. I speak his name in the privacy of my mind, whispering it as if the syllables themselves might summon him, and in that act, I feel both the courage of a princess and the vulnerability of a woman who has never known restraint. For to love him so completely is to expose every hidden part of myself to a danger that no crown can shield me from. Yet even the risk is sweet, because every heartbeat that races in his imagined presence is proof that I am alive, in a way I never was before he existed in the world that touches mine. The anticipation of seeing him again is a tide that swells inside me, rising higher each day, threatening to overflow, and I feel it pressing against the boundaries of my composure, a quiet insistence that I will surrender eventually, that I cannot help but fall. And I wonder, with both fear and hope, whether he feels the same relentless pull, whether his heart is a mirror to mine, beating in secret synchrony with the rhythms I cannot yet confess, and whether the world will allow us the chance to find the equilibrium that feels fated yet forbidden. Even in the smallest interactions, the brush of his hand against a table, the fleeting gaze that lingers, just a heartbeat too long, I am electrified, suspended in a liminal space where the world seems to vanish, and only he remains. And in that space, I confront the paradox of love, the simultaneous age of absence, and the intoxicating sweetness of presence. And I am overwhelmed, knowing that to live without this sensation would be to deny the very essence of myself, yet to indulge it risks everything I have been taught to protect. I imagine the softness of his lips in stolen moments, and the fantasy is so vivid that it leaves me trembling, my thoughts both a sanctuary and a torment, a secret world in which I am brave, unshackled and wholly consumed by him. And when I return to the public eye, to the duties and expectations that chain me to formality, I am haunted by the contrast, the unbearable tension between the life I lead and the life I crave, and I wonder if anyone has ever loved so fiercely while remaining so bound by circumstance. The scent of him lingers in my imagination like a delicate mist, subtle but persistent, and I find myself closing my eyes in moments of solitude just to inhale it, just to let it fill the spaces between thought and sensation. And I tremble at how a memory can become a presence, how longing can manifest as a tangible reality in a heart so willing to surrender. And yet even in this quiet indulgence, there is suspense, a delicious uncertainty, because I do not know if I will ever step beyond imagination into the realm where our desires collide. There are moments when I wonder if he senses the depth of my devotion, if he feels the silent language of my gaze, the unspoken admissions that hover in the spaces between words. And I am filled with a tension that is both terrifying and beautiful, for to be seen in such totality is a risk unlike any other. Yet it is a risk I am desperate to take, hoping against hope that he will recognize the resonance of our hearts, the quiet symphony of longing that we compose without a single note spoken aloud. I dream of the days when our conversation will carry the weight of eternity, when the trivialities of court and title will dissolve before the gravity of our connection, and I am suspended between the impossible present and a possible future, filled with both anticipation and fear, because love of this magnitude is a flame that illuminates and burns at once, and I am powerless before it, consumed by a desire that refuses to wait, a hunger that refuses to be sated by mere hope or imagination. Every moment without him is an exercise in restraint, yet every memory of him is a lesson in surrender, a reminder that the heart has no jurisdiction, that it beats according to its own design, indifferent to rank, title, or expectation. And I am caught in this tension, a princess bound by duty and decorum, yet a woman undone by passion, torn between the world I inhabit and the world I crave, a world in which he exists as my constant, my gravity, my inevitable surrender. I imagine the brush of his hair against my hand, the quiet intimacy of a shared secret, and the longing is unbearable, a suspense that coils within me, tightening with each heartbeat, making every mundane moment unbearably vivid, because I carry him inside me like a pulse, like a secret sun that warms and burns all at once, and I am helpless before the duality of this sensation, the exquisite torment of loving someone so fully, while the world insists that I remain composed. Even the thought of his laughter, the subtle curve of his smile, when he is caught unaware, sends tremors through me, a current that travels through the hidden chambers of my heart, awakening desires I have only whispered to myself in solitude. And I am haunted by the realization that love is not merely an emotion but a force, a tidal wave that reshapes everything in its path. And I tremble at the thought that he might wield this same power unknowingly, and that our collision, if it were ever to occur, would be both our salvation and our undoing. I carry him in my thoughts like a talisman, a presence that shields and consumes, comforting and igniting with equal measure. And in the quietest hours, I speak to him in my imagination, revealing secrets I cannot utter aloud, confessing fears and desires. And I am suspended in a suspended reality, where love is both a sanctuary and a suspenseful journey, where every heartbeat is a question, every glance a possibility, and every touch imagined is a risk I willingly embrace. The mere anticipation of his nearness fills me with a tension that is both exquisite and unbearable, a romantic suspense that makes every ordinary moment electrified with potential, for in my mind, I am always on the edge of discovery, always hovering in the space where a shared glance or fleeting touch might ignite a world of unspoken truths. And I am caught between exhilaration and terror, between the decorum demanded by my role and the primal desire that claims me wholly in his imagined presence. I imagine his hand seeking mine in quiet defiance of the world, and the fantasy is so vivid it leaves me breathless, suspended between the decorum of my station and the untamed yearning that he awakens, a suspense that is both cruel and tender, a tension that promises fulfillment while daring me to risk everything for a moment that may never come, and yet I am powerless to resist it, for every thought of him is a current that pulls me toward surrender. Even as I sit in the presence of others, I feel his absence as an ache that both defines and dissolves me, a suspense that sharpens my awareness, a longing that colors the mundane with the brilliance of imagined touch and whispered words. And I am both terrified and enraptured by this duality, for love, when so intense and suspended between possibility and impossibility, becomes a force that is almost unbearable, and yet I cannot imagine relinquishing even a fraction of it. Even in the grand halls of my palace, where golden chandeliers cast light upon floors polished by generations, I feel his absence like a shadow that stretches farther than the walls themselves, and I am haunted by the memory of his hand brushing against mine, so fleeting, yet it leaves a tremor that refuses to fade, a tension that twists through me with every heartbeat, making the world seem simultaneously vast and unbearably small, for my thoughts revolve entirely around him, a planet caught in the gravity of his existence. At times, I close my eyes and imagine him standing at the edge of a moonlit terrace, the wind teasing the strands of his hair, the faintest curve of a smile hinting at secrets I cannot yet know, and in that image, my chest tightens with both fear and desire, because I understand that to be near him is to risk every carefully constructed boundary of my life. Yet the pull is irresistible, like the tide that cannot be commanded, only surrendered to. The elegance of my surroundings fades whenever he is in my thoughts, replaced by a vivid, intimate world where only he and I exist, a secret reality of stolen glances and whispered promises, and I am suspended in a romantic suspense, so exquisite that it aches, every nerve in my body alight. Every thought focused on the possibility that he might know, even in the smallest way, how irrevocably he has claimed my heart. I remember the first time our eyes truly met, the way his gaze lingered with a softness that both terrified and comforted me. And I have never forgotten the sensation, the way it made the air itself feel charged, as though the world had paused just to witness the alignment of our souls. And in that suspended moment, I understood the paradox of love, its ability to illuminate and unnerve at the same time, to bring life and fear together in an unending, irresistible dance. Even in solitude, I am aware of him, as if he is a presence in the room, a constant companion in my imagination. And I marvel at the cruelty and wonder of longing, how it can sustain and torment simultaneously, making every day both unbearable and beautiful. A suspense that never lets me rest, that coils through my thoughts like a living thing, demanding attention, devotion, and surrender. I imagine our hands brushing again, slowly, deliberately, and the thought ignites a fire so consuming that I am both thrilled and afraid, a delicious fear that tinges every sensation with heightened awareness, making the mundane seem profound, the ordinary extraordinary, because love, when suspended between possibility and impossibility, transforms reality into a landscape of heightened emotion, and I am utterly vulnerable to it. The sound of his laughter, the cadence of his voice, when he speaks without awareness of my attention, lingers in my mind like a melody I cannot forget, each note both a comfort and a torment, and I am consumed by the need to hear it again, to witness the subtle play of his expressions, the quiet intensity of his presence, knowing that to encounter it fully would be to surrender myself entirely to a longing that defies reason, yet cannot be denied. I imagine him noticing me in passing, the briefest glance, and the universe contracting to a single point where time slows, and I am acutely aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of emotion that passes across his face. And the suspense of that imagined encounter is exquisite, a tension that binds me, unrelenting, a reminder that love is never passive, when it burns this brightly, when every glance carries the potential to shift worlds. Even when duty calls me to the throne, to ceremonies and appearances, I am haunted by the anticipation of him, the subtle ache of imagining our paths converging in secret moments, in whispered exchanges that no one else can witness, and I am suspended in a tension that is at once thrilling and terrifying, knowing that each encounter, each shared silence, might bring us closer or leave me yearning for eternity. I feel him in the spaces between thoughts, a constant undercurrent beneath the decorum and expectation of my role, and the suspense of waiting for him to appear. For some unspoken acknowledgement keeps my senses acute, my emotions heightened, and I am both desperate and patient, a paradox of longing, because to rush would spoil the delicious uncertainty that love this profound always carries. I dream of sharing secrets with him, confessions whispered beneath the veil of night, and the anticipation is intoxicating, a romantic suspense that coils within me, tender and sharp at once, a sensation that makes my heart race and my stomach twist with both fear and delight, because I know that to reveal myself fully is to risk everything, yet to hold back is to deny the very essence of life that he evokes. There are moments when I imagine him speaking my name in a room where no one else can hear, and the sound reverberates through my mind, as though it were both an invocation and a promise, a spell that binds me to him even across distance, and I am captivated by the possibility The suspense of whether that voice exists in reality, or only in the sanctuary of my own longing. And either way, it fills me entirely. The thought of him approaching me in the quiet hours, the brush of his hand against mine, the subtle intimacy of shared presence, makes my heart accelerate, a rhythm that mirrors the uncertainty of our love, the tension between desire and propriety, and I am suspended in a state of exquisite torment, because I cannot imagine a world without him. Yet I know that reality may never align with the fantasy I cultivate in secret. Even the faintest memory of his gaze makes my pulse quicken, a living reminder of the power he holds over me, the romantic suspense that colors every interaction, imagined or real, with intensity. And I am captivated by it, unable to resist, knowing that my devotion is total, irreversible, and both a joy and a burden that defines my every moment. I imagine him standing silently at a distance, the weight of his presence pulling at my very being, and the suspense of whether he will step closer, whether he will acknowledge the invisible bond between us, keeps me trembling with anticipation, a delicious fear that heightens every sensation, that makes the world feel suspended, balanced precariously on the edge of what might be. I feel his absence like a physical ache, a hollow in my chest that only his nearness can fill, and I am consumed by the tension of waiting, by the unrelenting desire that colors my thoughts, my dreams, my very essence, and I understand that love of this magnitude is not a quiet thing. It is a force, unstoppable, uncontainable, and I am both terrified and grateful to be swept into its current. Every imagined touch is a thrill and a torment, a romantic suspense that binds me to him in ways I cannot fully articulate, and I live in the delicate tension of what is and what might be, a princess caught between duty and desire, between the safety of solitude and the perilous ecstasy of surrender, and in this tension, I find both fear and freedom, a duality that defines the depth of my devotion. The anticipation of his words, of hearing him speak with awareness of me, fills me with a tension so exquisite that I can barely breathe, and I am both frightened and exhilarated by the possibility, the uncertainty that defines our connection, because love, when suspended like this, is both cruel and kind, a test of patience and a reward beyond measure, and I am powerless before it. Even as I move through my day, the world demanding composure, I carry him as a secret current beneath my skin, a romantic suspense that shapes my every thought and action. And I am aware of how fully he inhabits my heart, how completely he has claimed me in ways no one else could. And this knowledge is both a thrill and a torment, a silent, exquisite tension that colors my entire existence. I imagine the first time he might confess what he feels, and the suspense of that moment fills me with a trembling hope, a delicate fear, a yearning that borders on desperation, because the stakes of such an admission are monumental, the consequences infinite, and yet the possibility of it is enough to sustain me, to keep me alive in the suspended, electric world that he has created in my heart. I feel him everywhere, even when he is nowhere, as though his presence lingers in the air I breathe, in the flicker of candlelight, in the subtle curve of shadows, and the suspense of whether he will ever truly step into my world, fully aware of how wholly I am his, keeps me trembling, suspended between hope and fear, a delicious tension that consumes every corner of my being. Every heartbeat carries his name, silently spoken, repeated like a prayer that only I can hear, and the weight of this devotion is both exquisite and unbearable, For I am caught between the impossibility of surrendering completely and the undeniable pull that tells me I am already undone, a prisoner of a love that has no boundaries, no rules, and no escape. I imagine him reaching for me in the quiet moments, our fingers brushing in a slow defiance of decorum, and the anticipation of that touch ignites a fire that spreads through me like wildfire, consuming my thoughts, my composure, my very sense of self, until I am suspended in a romantic suspense that is at once terrifying and transcendent, a delicate balance of longing and courage. Even in the light of day, when all eyes are upon me, I am aware of him, as though he stands just beyond the periphery, a magnetic force I cannot resist, and every imagined glance or smile carries the weight of possibility. A tension that vibrates through me with such intensity that I am both elated and fearful, a princess on the verge of surrendering to a love too powerful to ignore. I recall the subtle intimacies that have passed between us, the unspoken acknowledgements, the moments of eye contact that linger too long, and in these memories, I am suspended in a delicate tension, a romantic suspense that heightens every sense, every emotion, until the world feels narrowed to the gravity of his presence. Even when he is absent, I dream of confessions, of whispered truths in the safety of shadows, and the suspense of whether those moments will ever arrive keeps me trembling with anticipation. For love of this magnitude cannot remain hidden forever, and yet the fear of exposure makes each imagined interaction unbearably sweet and delicate, a secret that is mine alone to cherish. His voice haunts me, even in silence, a melody that I play endlessly in my mind, each word, each inflection, an echo that reminds me of the depth of my longing, and I am captivated by the suspense of whether he feels this same magnetic pull, whether he too is suspended in the liminal space where desire and decorum collide. The thought of him near yet unreachable fills me with both longing and dread, a romantic suspense that coils inside me, tightening with every imagined step toward him, every imagined word shared, until my heart races and my body trembles, a captive to the gravity of his existence, to the impossible, beautiful, and terrifying certainty that I am his. Even the smallest gestures become profound in my imagination, a brush of hair from my face, a fleeting smile, the subtlest change in expression, and the tension of what might follow electrifies every nerve, reminding me that love, when suspended between the possible and the impossible, is a force that reshapes the world, and I am powerless, but willing to surrender completely. I imagine him speaking my name in the quiet of the night, a confession, a promise, a recognition of the bond that has grown between us silently. And the suspense of that imagined moment is exquisite, a thrill that ignites every fiber of my being, and I am suspended between hope and fear, between longing and the terror of reality, all at once. Even in solitude, I am aware of him, as though his presence occupies the very air, the spaces between thoughts, the rhythm of my heartbeat, and the suspense of what he might do, what he might feel, what he might know, keeps me entranced, suspended in a delicate, exquisite tension that defines every moment of my life. I imagine our hands finally intertwining, the first brush of skin against skin, and the anticipation is overwhelming, a romantic suspense that twists and turns through me, making every thought vivid, every sensation heightened, until the world narrows to that single, impossible possibility, that first touch that promises eternity. The mere thought of being with him in secret, away from the eyes of the world, fills me with a trembling, electric longing, a romantic suspense that both exhilarates and terrifies me. For to surrender to it is to risk everything. Yet to deny it is to deny the very life that he has awakened within me, a life that burns with unrelenting intensity. I imagine the warmth of his presence in ways that no words could capture, and the suspense of whether that warmth will ever be tangible in the realm of reality leaves me both anxious and entranced. A princess caught in a spell woven by desire, devotion, and the impossibility of our union in the public eye. Even the thought of him watching me from a distance, silently, unspoken, ignites a fire in my chest, a romantic suspense that leaves me trembling, every heartbeat magnified, every nerve alight with anticipation, as though the world itself waits for the moment when our paths will finally converge in ways that destiny and desire demand. I imagine stolen moments, glances that linger too long, touches that might never occur, and in the suspense of these imagined intimacies, I am both alive and undone, a woman suspended between reality and fantasy, between duty and desire, a tension that makes every ordinary moment extraordinary, and every imagined encounter a thrill that consumes me completely. The thought of confessing my love, of speaking the words aloud, fills me with both terror and exhilaration, a suspense that coils within me, unrelenting, because to speak them is to risk everything, yet to remain silent is to deny the truth that defines me, the truth that he has awakened a fire in my soul that refuses to be dimmed. I carry him in my thoughts like a constant companion, a presence that both comforts and consumes, a suspenseful, delicate tension that colors every interaction, every glance, every fleeting moment. And I am aware that this love, this devotion, is not merely an emotion but a force, unstoppable and transformative, one that defines the very core of who I am. Even the idea of him noticing me in subtle ways, acknowledging the invisible thread that binds us, sends tremors through me, a romantic suspense that is both exquisite and unbearable. For I am aware that our connection exists on the knife's edge of possibility, a delicate balance between revelation and secrecy, between desire and restraint. I imagine the first time our lips might meet, a stolen kiss, a secret shared in the shadow of night, and the suspense of that imagined moment fills me with trembling anticipation. For such a moment would alter everything, making the world smaller, brighter and infinitely more dangerous, and yet the thought alone is enough to consume me entirely. Even now, I feel the pull of him as though it is a magnetic force, a gravitational certainty, a romantic suspense that binds me in invisible chains, and I am powerless to resist, willingly drawn into a devotion that is both my sanctuary and my torment, my joy and my peril, a love so complete that it has become the axis around which my very existence revolves.